after my graduation, I spent 10 months trying to build something, and I did all the wrong things, right? The market was not supporting my idea. It taught me a big lesson in entrepreneurship. You don't build till you know there is a demand. My first venture was something I just did out of blue. I taught strategy, innovation, but never entrepreneurship. So I thought, how hard it can be.
Welcome to Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD, your weekly inspiration for post-PhD career development. With me, David Mendes. Today, I have the pleasure of having with me Katerina Thomas. Katerina has a PhD in innovation strategy. She is an innovation strategist and edupreneur consultant who helps STEM professionals turn deep expertise into premium offers and scalable, elegant businesses that are fast, simple, and free from tech tangles. She works with smart-driven minds ready to monetize what they know without the noise and without complex marketing systems. Her mission is to help you, the scientist, build a business that feels good from the inside out, one that is profitable, purposeful, and actually doable. And today we're going to talk about her journey from her PhD to what she's doing today in this space that I just described, and also talk about all the reflections she's had so far about what it is to be a researcher and then to move and to have career pivots. So welcome, Katerina. It's really a pleasure to have you here today. And I'm also super grateful that the internet allows us to now in this community have overseas conversations with such ease. And so I'm super happy to bring you and your message and your journey, your story to the Papa PhD audience.
Thank you for inviting me, David. Yeah, glad to be here.
Mm-hmm. So, Katerina, I think we'll start. We'll start at the beginning. Of course, it's going to be interesting to hear what you have to say and how you navigated that journey towards going towards your PhD, doing that research, getting that degree, and then all that happened after. I know there were twists and turns, and there were different aspects in your journey, but we'll cover them. For example, motherhood is one, but we'll talk about that later on in the conversation. But I'd really like you to, based on that very quick bio that I shared, allow the audience to learn a little bit more about you, what drives you, what drove you to go get that PhD degree in this domain. Actually, there haven't been a lot of conversations, probably no conversations with, if I remember well, no conversations with someone like you who has a PhD in a management innovation domain. So I'm super curious also about how that maybe differs from other types of curricula and domains and research domains that I have covered. Of course, life sciences, like what I did, other hard sciences, but also social sciences, and management seems to be a different thing. So I'm also curious, and I know the audience would be curious to learn about that. So tell us a little bit more about you, what drives you, how and what that journey was for you.
Okay, so I came to the UK in 2000, and so I did my undergraduate degree, and I came to the UK. I knew very little English, so I thought, okay, what can improve my English? So I went to the university and did linguistics degree, okay. And was actually trained to be a teacher of English with linguistics and German as well. So by the time I finished that, obviously, my language improved, and I thought, I want to go back to business because I already had a business degree from my university in Latvia. So I did an MSc in international business. Of course, when we did that, we were given a choice whether to follow the path of organizational behavior or choose the path of strategic management and ops research and all that. So I chose the more technical side of it because that was something I wanted to do. And when I finished my master's, it kind of felt like a natural sort of progression. I quite liked the university life, so I thought I'll do a PhD. So I chose to do my PhD in strategy/innovation, but my PhD was a bumpy ride, and so my first supervisor, and I had to change my supervisor, right? She wanted me to focus more on the corporate social responsibility side of the business. And I just felt that like it was my interest to focus on innovation, why some companies are better than others. Because if you look around us, all the products is just a result of innovation, right? And innovation is just applied STEM, right? So I thought I want to focus on innovation. And after the first year, I don't know what the structure is in Canada, but in the UK, you have this MPhil/PhD, right? So in the first year, you do a lot of research methods and you write your thesis sort of in preparation of this viral oral viva. So I've done a lot of this work, and it just like I was kind of steering away from my initial topic of innovation, and then after the first year, I think 10 months in doing my PhD, I thought, no, I can't carry on like this. I need to go back to my innovation. And so I had to change the supervisor, and literally I had 3 months to redo my whole literature review. And it was really, really tough because it was one of the hottest summers. So I had to literally put the blind on, put the curtain on the window because it was so sunny and nice weather. And I just like wrote from morning till evening. I just changed my literature review. And in September, I had my oral viva and I passed. And I also managed to get a studentship. So the university actually paid for my PhD, and I also landed a part-time role at the university teaching strategic management. So this is how I end up going into a PhD, with a focus on innovation. But because I changed the supervisor, my first supervisor had connections, had networks, had everything basically, and she said, if you are with me, I'll get you in front of the right people. You'll have no problem doing your data collection and all that. And because I changed the supervisor, I was just on my own. I had to do everything the hard way. I was collecting data through interviews and also surveys, right? So I had to create this multi-language platform, code it, and I had to literally pick up the phone and then do cold calling, asking companies to see me for an interview. So I did all that hard work, and I guess it gave me a little bit of confidence that I can do it. So when I submitted my final thesis, I had minor corrections, and literally they gave me like a couple of months to finish it. And what's happened? I was invited to this graduation party, and I was all dressed up in a gown, all ready to go get my diploma and all that. And I was never called to the stage, and I was like, what's happened there? And my supervisor, because of some of his family issues, he forgot to do some paperwork.
No.
So they never put me on the list. So I didn't graduate. So it was another 4 months when I actually graduated. And, by that time, I was just so deflated.
Of course.
But you know how it is. And I just felt like, why did I even start this journey? But at the end, yes, I got my PhD. But it's because this data collection and me traveling overseas and collecting this data kind of gave me that confidence that I can do it.
Yeah.
So I had an idea for a business, and I decided, okay, well, I'll start a business. And this is how I went into entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, it must have been such a kind of a weird feeling to just see the ceremony ending and your name was not even called. Like, what is happening? But then you got it, and that's what's important. So entrepreneurship, that's something we hear much more these days. Like since the last few years, I've had a bunch of conversations on the podcast, off the podcast, about entrepreneurship for and by scientists, and especially here, for example, in Quebec, there are different programs that are funded by the Quebec government to promote entrepreneurship literacy, let's say, in young graduates, and eventually to promote their ideas to go farther. But what I think still is very important, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is to hear, because one thing is to get the course on what it is, what's a business canvas, etc. So what's to learn all of that curriculum. The other thing is to actually understand what happens once you are an entrepreneur, and so you've done that, and I think you're in a great place to share a little bit of maybe the chaos that it is, because maybe someone thinks, it's you have an idea and then you push on and then in the end you have a product, and you and I both know it's not like that. But I'd love to hear then, once you made that jump to entrepreneurship, you had your idea, you had your training behind you. I'd love to let you share about did that first idea work? How many ideas or projects were there after that? And what are caveats? What are lessons learned? So yeah, I'll let you choose which point to start from. But I'd love for you to share your actually like terrain experience, being an entrepreneur and actually having to pivot ideas as an entrepreneur.
I mean, my first business was a failure, and I had this idea, I had passion, and I just decided, okay, after my graduation, I just want to try running it, starting a business, and I spent 10 months trying to build something, and I did all the wrong things, right? Mm-hmm. I built something, and the market was not supporting my idea, and it kind of taught me a big lesson in entrepreneurship. You don't build till you know there is a demand, and how do we know there is a demand, right? I only started teaching entrepreneurship later on because of my experiences, but of course my first venture was something I just did out of blue. I taught strategy, innovation, but never entrepreneurship. So I thought, how hard it can be. So I had this great idea of running this programs, and back then I've identified there was a market gap in terms of there were a lot of students graduating with IT degrees and computing degrees, but then the employers were always kind of pointing at the fact that they do not have the right skills. So I thought, well, how do I bridge that gap? Exactly. And that's been my obsession since the beginning. So I thought, okay, how do I bridge that gap? And I thought, okay, well, if I can come up with this idea of like retraining, that I take these students, I connect them with companies, I sign contracts with companies, I also do some kind of a CPD and give them a diploma and place them within those companies, I've cracked it, right? Mm-hmm. And I did. I had contracts with companies. I had companies waiting for students. I also liaised with a big organization and actually certified my courses, right? Okay. And they were like digital marketing courses. No one was teaching digital marketing back then at the universities. That was really, really new. Yeah. Mobile app development, all sorts of interesting things. And so I had all this in place. And then, of course, that was the last year when the UK's government said, okay, all the students still pay what, £3,000 or something like that for the degree. Next year we increased the cost to 9,000.
Okay. Oh goodness!
And there was an avalanche.
Of course.
All the people just decided to go to universities, and of course, that was all these graduates who couldn't find the roles. They decided to go and upgrade their, and get postgraduate degrees. And of course, the market was not there supporting my model.
Of course.
And after spending good 10 months building it, I realized that there was no market for this idea.
All right, and so this is a big first lesson for anyone listening and thinking they have an idea that could be marketable. Making sure and having interviewing people and having actually hard data confirming that your idea is going to fulfill a real and an important need in the market is a very big and important first step. So that's a great first lesson. Now, also, you just mentioned that there was an event that kind of changed the game. That event of the stipends kind of tripling soon, and so people going back to actually have more degrees before it got more expensive. So that that's also that's something you could not predict when you started, and it's I think it represents the risks that there are. So we often hear the word risk associated with entrepreneurship. That was a risk that you couldn't see coming. It was like an unknown that appeared. But I remember talking with you before that you have this concept on, is entrepreneurship really riskier than staying in academia? And I wonder whether this is a right moment to maybe talk about that. So at that point, did you, for example, think, okay, I should have stayed instead of launching into this and now being here with 10 months of work that I have to put in the dustbin?
No, this insight actually came to me later.
Okay.
After 10 months of struggling to get clients and customers, I realized that actually, if you look at the statistics, why small businesses fail, I mean, number one reason, there's no market need, right? The second reason, you run out of cash. And also, if you look at some of the key factors that contribute to the success of small businesses, timing is very important. Sometimes you are too early for a market, and sometimes you're too late for a market. And also, they also mentioned there's another dimension, which is luck. Sometimes you just have to be lucky. So I didn't want to go back to academia, but I had to, right? And but what I did, because I've gained so much insight, so much experience, I had to attend all this, breakfast meetings at the Chamber of Commerce, do my pitching, and liaise with different possible partners. It actually gave me a lot of confidence to apply to the role, which was another grade from where I would be starting initially. So I just applied for a senior lecturer role, and if you think about the Canadian dollars, you're talking about 20,000 in difference between the grades, right? And so I applied, and I got the role because of all my experiences. I literally went and I talked about what I did for my business, which gave them the confidence to give me a high paid role. But in terms of the safe, which one is safe, to stay in academia or to try entrepreneurship? I think it's more risky to stay in academia, actually, without diversifying into, other aspects of, in terms of business and so on. Because in academia, I stayed and I did some. I worked on some really cool projects. I managed in 2 years time when I joined them. I managed to land a role of the interim subject lead of strategy and international business. So I wasn't doing the management, and actually doing entrepreneurship gave me that confidence even to put myself forward. Because I remember that email when they sent an email saying, who would like to, apply for this role? I said, me. And if I didn't do what I did for my early business, then I would probably be still hiding, right? But in terms of the safety net, later I realized when I went on my maternity leave, and then when I returned, I realized that the department was in turmoil. They were restructuring because of the lack of students for their programs. And this is something we can't always control, because we can control the curriculum, right? We can control the development of the programs, but we cannot control what the marketing department is doing with our programs, right? How they market our programs to the rest of the world, because they work in their own siloed department, and we do not have that visibility how they market our programs. So yeah, it was the hard truth. I realized that when I returned from my maternity, they were restructuring and there were no roles, for colleagues anymore.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They literally created this pool of new roles, and that's that everyone reapplying for the same role. Associate professors, senior lecturers, everybody had to reapply for a small bunch of roles.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I realized, it's when you put all your eggs in one basket without diversifying into other areas, then you are at a higher risk.
That's true.
At least with entrepreneurship, you can control the outcome. You can control pricing. You can control positioning, and who you partner with.
Of course, because you're the one at the helm. Now,
absolutely.
You had mentioned something to me before that I think a lot of people go through. I think even more women maybe go through, which is that day when someone tells you, well, you didn't sell yourself well enough. And once you came back from maternity leave, there was this restructuration. And how did you react when you were told that? Or what reflections do you have about this selling yourself? Because selling yourself is not everyone is comfortable with the term. It's very taboo. It's also very fuzzy. What does it mean, selling myself? Is it just schmoozing? Because I know most graduate students or young graduates I talk with don't even like the term selling yourself. There's this kind of aversion to it. They kind of bulkhead it. Can you talk a little bit about this? Because I think it's an important thing to talk about, and you having gone through it and then having all your experience later on, you probably have some good reflections about this selling yourself and what that means for a young professional, be it as an entrepreneur selling your project, but also as someone who's within a company or within an institution. Do you have reflections about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give you a little bit of context, imagine, I'm doing all this, important work. I'm in charge of, MBA. I'm teaching corporate programs to Ministry of Defense in the UK, to RAF. And, I'm running a department and I'm organizing the Entrepreneurship Week, 2017. I'm doing a speaking gig, in front of the students about AI. Very few people actually pay attention to AI in 2017. And then I go on a maternity leave. 11 months later, I come back, and I'm being put in a situation where I need to reapply for the role, right? And that, my son was 11 months old or something like that, and he was really ill. And I asked them, how do I do this interview? Do I do it over Skype? Back then it was Skype. Or do I come in person? And they said, well, it's up to you. And I thought, well, I better come in person because, it's important, right? And then I had to drag him with it because he was quite poorly. He had temperature. So I had to go to the university. It was 50 miles away. So it was quite far away. So I had to drag him on a train, left him in the office with my colleague, right? And went to the interview. And that was really surprising to me to hear this informal feedback, like, oh, Katerina, you didn't sell yourself. And I'm like, I didn't know I had to because I've done all this stuff before. I didn't think I had to try really hard to prove what I was capable of. And it was kind of surprising. But then I was dealing with a new management that didn't remember everything I did for the department. And corporate memory is short, right? And I guess in academia it's the same, right? You only remembered, you only judged on your latest project, I guess. But when you go away for a period of time, then, if the management changes, they don't remember. So yeah, it was kind of, it was quite unexpected to hear these things. But as a result, I just thought, they actually offered me a role which was like a stepping down in terms of the pay scale. And I said no. So I just left, started writing my book, and just kind of thought, one door shuts, another door opens. There'll be other opportunities. And this is how I left that institution, because I just felt it was kind of, not a betrayal of what I did for them, but it just felt, you on your own. There is no safety.
Exactly.
Today we have students, we have job. Tomorrow market changes, and then everyone has to reapply for the roles.
Yeah, management changes, and
absolutely.
And that's that's sad, and especially probably you're now a mom and needing stability, and the ground was just taken from behind, from under your feet. So anyway, but the good thing is you have this entrepreneurial, kind of nature, let's say, or penchant, and you went that way, and you talked about writing a book. But I still want to just spend a few seconds on maybe today in 2025. What can you share, with young women out there or young men in STEM who maybe are still within a department or who are developing or starting their career within an organization? What can you tell them about this selling yourself, which again is it's a very vague term, but with all these years of entrepreneurship, I'm sure the concept has kind of matured in your head. What advice can you share with young STEM people out there? Before going on with my conversation with Katerina Thomas, I just want to let you know that going forward in the 7th season of Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD, I will have a section on the Papa PhD website where deals from guests or sponsors will be featured for you, the listener of Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD. So head over right now, if you want to take a little pause, to papaphd.com/sponsors and find the deals section where you will find the current offers. And now let's go back to my conversation with Katerina Thomas. Why is it important, let's say, to have a journal, keep notes of your accomplishments, maybe have a regular habit of talking with your manager so they're always kind of reminded of your accomplishments, or if you want, in another way, how, if you're maybe more introverted but you still have an entrepreneurial idea, how do you help yourself in getting better at selling your project, selling your profile, and making sure people keep you top of mind? Because I think that was kind of the what was being told of you, is, oh, you were away all that time, and many things happened, and sorry, all your accomplishments before kind of got lost in the haze. So let's maybe talk more in this entrepreneurial ecosystem or space.
Yeah. Okay. So I think a better strategy is to actually become the person people are seeking in the first place. You don't want to be in a position when you are dependent on someone else's motivations, on someone else's projects, right? You have to create a value based on your skill set, on your based on your expertise. And you need to create this personal branding in a way. You have to invest in personal branding and become the voice, the authority in your field, that people choose you over other people, right? I think this is a safer strategy than just relying on being noticed within your department. So yeah, you need to do what's best for you, right? And it's always good, even if you are working in a department and you're dedicated to a project or to your team, it's always good to diversify and think about, outside of the organization, how do you create that influence outside of your organization? So if things change, you are not dependent on one source, you're not dependent on one stream of income. So I think the diversification is the key. Actually, if you think from the business point of view, if you look at the Fortune 500 list of companies, I mean, the top companies, they're all diversified, right? Because it's a risk minimization strategy when you diversify into multiple streams of income or multiple activities, right? But
yeah, it makes me think of BlackBerry, right?
Yeah, but do not be a bit selfish in terms of your interests and building your profile outside of the organization. And my advice would be to for anyone in STEM, create your own website, with your name, and just start writing about your expertise, your views, because you are who you are, what the internet says. And of course now it's ChatGPT or all these LLMs, right? If people are doing search now not on Google, right? They're moving towards this, and it's what they can find, right? About you, become this voice of an authority voice in your field, that people are searching to connect with you as opposed to you going and trying to connect with people.
I love that you mentioned voice, because and it feels to me like what you're saying is have a little bit of ego. Another word that
be selfish.
Yeah,
be selfish.
and even selfishness, right? It's not a super easy word to have everyone say, okay, I'm going to be selfish, but a little bit. The question is the amount. It's like a condiment, It's something that from what I'm hearing, you need to have some aspect of what you do day to day, week to week, which is building your profile. So when someone looks for David Mendes, for Katerina Thomas, they plug it on Google and they find something, maybe a blog, maybe a YouTube channel, or something that then represents you and is your work and shows maybe your colors, your personality, etc., but also your expertise, and that's why you talked about authority. Thank you. This is I asked because it's a very there's a lot of introverted scientists out there, young scientists, and I'm sure just hearing this from you helps them understand a little bit what I mean or what we mean when we say you need to sell yourself. Now, we talked about your first business venture. We talked about you turning down this downgrade in the academic department you were at. What came next? What was the next venture after that?
Yeah, I mean, I started experimenting with with e-commerce. I mean, before I left my role, so I had this burning desire to do well in business, right? And so I thought, okay, well, one way to learn about how to be on Amazon, everyone was just like, oh, e-commerce is going to be absolutely huge. But I think I was also too late for a market. But yeah, it was 2014, right, when I started sort of experimenting with e-commerce, and I literally went on a course, and they gave me this pack, how to connect with suppliers and so on. So I thought, okay, well, I'll come up with my own branded products. So I started an Amazon business selling in the US, connected with a private label manufacturer in the US, and created 3 products, which was for the pet market, because I didn't have my son then. I had 2 dogs, and of course dogs were my passion. So I thought, well, what can I create for that market, because it's quite hot. It's a hot market. So yeah, I created this product line, and also then started selling different, merchandise, pillows, mugs, and stuff like that. Signed an art licensing agreement with a US company, and of course today is everything probably they're using NFTs, but back then they had to send me a spreadsheet and stuff like that. But yeah, I was experimenting selling on Etsy, and just the first year was really good. I mean, it was over 100K in revenue. And the market was really showing really good trajectory, but then, I got pregnant with my son, and I just it just felt too much. So I closed the business down, and but it just taught me a couple of lessons. Do not trust marketing gurus, also called marketing gurus. Always test and pivot. Do not 100% follow the advice, because if some advice is working for one market, that doesn't mean it's going to work for your market. And this is what I found. An advice of not starting a blog, I closed my blog, right? And then realized that actually influencers and bloggers were doing quite all right. And then when time came for me to start selling, I had to contact these influencers, and they were charging a lot of money to promote my product. And I was just like, that doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So again, you have to, it's another lesson, I guess. But it's, you have to constantly learn when it comes to running a business, and there is always something you don't know, something you can do differently.
Yeah, and this story I've heard. Like I said, here in Quebec, there's programs that help young graduates or anyway young graduate researchers learn the basics of entrepreneurship, and then also help them eventually start up something. There's different, as you know, there's different levels or different stages. But yeah, I've heard these stories of, look, I thought this was my original idea, and then once we started working on it, and I started to make it, and I started trying, testing the audience, etc., the target audience, it actually changed. And if you're very stuck to your original idea, then you're going to miss opportunities, and you're going to a little bit like it happened with you with the first endeavor that you mentioned. You're going to be just kind of putting your head down and being stubborn, and then just lose months of time and money, because in fact the market, you weren't listening to the market, and you didn't pivot when it was needed. So it does make sense. So, but it also means, let me know what you think. But it also means that even though you have an idea, you wake up one day and say, "Well, I think this could be a business." It's also not good. What would you say about this? That it's not good to say, "Okay, I'll launch it when I have it perfect." Is because some people might have that type of personality, especially with our background and trying to control everything, every variable, and make sure everything is up to snuff. You can start, or maybe even you should start imperfect, right? You should allow yourself to start imperfect, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge for academics, because
Right,
academia
yeah.
teaches you depth, right? But entrepreneurship actually requires you to go, breadth and adaptability, right? Pivoting. Like you said, your first idea may not be the idea that will be bankable and sellable, right? You need to pivot constantly. When you were saying this, it reminded me of the book, and this is probably one of my favorite books. It's called The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. And he actually talks about the exact problem which you've mentioned. Entrepreneurs and founders, they wear these 4 hats, and the first hat is the hat of a creator. And and they want to perfect their product, and they're so sometimes attached and passionate about the product that they spend too much time fine-tuning till they run out of cash. And his first question in the book is like, if you were to unwind 3 financial decisions in your life, how much more money would you have right now? And sometimes missing on an opportunity is better than jumping head on and losing a bunch of money, right, without assessing risks. So he's talking about this, first hat is a creator hat. The second hat is your classical, tactical hat, when you try to optimize your website, change the colors 15 times, change the font and this and that to make it perfect, right? Because you think you have this fear that someone is going to judge you because your website font is wrong, right, or not perfect, and then you just basically spend all this money and energy, and energy actually is very important, right? And by the time you lose that momentum to launch and get the traction, by the time you launch something, you're so exhausted. So the first challenge you have, you just like, oh, there's no market, I'm just gonna give up, because what's the point, right? And around you, you have people, and you think they're laughing that you're another, it's another failure and stuff like that, and you give up. And he's actually in the book, he talks about this, you have to have business skills. You have to constantly learn about, strategies of risk minimization, and spend some time actually thinking about the risks, as opposed to jumping on and starting a new venture. And that's why I like the concept of minimum viable product, which is you create a product. It doesn't mean that the product is not ready. You create a minimum viable product, but then you adapt, and tweak that product depending on your customer feedback. Business planning, I mean, we are no longer, we kind of try not to teach business planning anymore, because no business plan actually survives its first contact with the customer. It's a better strategy to have like business model canvas. Think about, okay, this is my market, this is my product, and then try to fine tune and find that product market fit, right? And then, but if you look at the successful companies, they all start doing something else, and then they continuously tweaking their offer, their product, and then eventually they end up doing something completely different. So don't be perfect. And I know it's hard for PhDs, because you have that perfection embedded in you. But sometimes you have to, like Seth Godin says, shape your creative work, in a rough state, sometimes, and just test the market.
Yeah.
And only then fine tune it.
Yeah.
And make it look pretty.
Well, I'm glad I asked the question because it was really a cool answer, and I think again this is going to help our young STEM people out there a lot. Now we are getting to the end of the interview, and I wonder whether there are. Well, first, I want you to share where you landed today. What your current business venture is, and maybe and importantly, what have you learned? What were the lessons learned from these first ventures and these pivots that then brought you to where you are today in terms of being an entrepreneur? Were there, specific lessons, maybe specific conversations you had with people, with mentors? And then let's talk about, what it is that you're doing, because it also has to do with our community.
I think the main lesson from my entrepreneurship ventures is to start with the market. Start with the market, create something that can be tested very quickly, and then pivot if needed, without bleeding cash, without bleeding your energy. Because entrepreneurs, and again, this is another thing I did, I started this podcast and I had only 43 episodes, but my sort of my motivation was to find out, what's really happening to entrepreneurs in terms of the mental stress, because it's not easy to be an entrepreneur and it is risky, right? But then at the same time, you have the agency, you control the outcome. You can train yourself to be better at marketing or business skills, right? But you control the outcome. In academia, sometimes you don't control the outcome. There is a ceiling, and the ceiling is quite low. So start small. Have a project. Test that project idea. Pivot if needed, because again, you need to find that market product fit first without spending a lot of cash. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now, right? I'm helping STEM professionals and STEM educators to actually monetize their expertise by creating an offer, testing it, within the first 30 days, testing it on the market without complexity associated with marketing, building funnels, and spending money on all these gadgets and tools which you don't need, right? Initially test the market, see if something works, see if you can actually solve someone else's problem with your solution, and then pivot and just bootstrap your success, right? And fine tune that, find that market product fit first, and only then make it perfect.
Okay, for the people who are out there and who are not yet, privy to the terminology, what does bootstrapping your project mean?
Bootstrapping your project is basically using your own cash to fund your entrepreneurship, right? To fund your venture. Do not borrow money from the banks. You don't need this. Okay. You can just spend very minimum. I mean, all you need today is just ChatGPT. I mean, it can replace all your admin support and do content creation, stuff like that. So you can bootstrap everything with a small amount of money, create an offer, test it with a small group of people, see if that's something the market wants. If it's a wrong message, change the message, slightly change the angle, but test and pivot if needed with a minimum amount of cash spent.
Okay, very good. That's great advice. And now to what you're doing today with the Creative STEM Hub. What is this venture?
Okay, so we are running free master classes for STEM professionals and STEM educators, showing them how to create, we call it the minimum viable premium product, something that you can sell for a large amount of money. Because the problem with a lot of entrepreneurs is that they're being bombarded by these messages, create a small product which is like $47 and then create another product, and then 10 years down the line you can charge someone. But you need to change that mindset, charge the premium prices. You are the expert, right? Just think about how many books, how many journal papers you've read, how far ahead you are
How many
compared
years,
to the rest of the, how many years
you've given?
I mean, that is valuable on its own, right? You just need to package it correctly and find the right audience that want your solutions.
Without quitting their academic job.
I wouldn't advise to quit, because when you quit and when you have that energy of you need money, right? Then that energy shows up when you have sales conversations. And again, you can sell without selling. You can just sell by having conversations. But if you package your offer correctly, you don't really need to be salesy, right? But then again, when you give up, when you leave your role and you do not have that cash coming in, because we all have bills, right? Then it's much harder to lean back and not want that money, right? And it's you don't need that energy, because if customers or clients see that energy that you are needy, you need this money, they will not buy from you.
And so how do you then, how do you kind of navigate this balance between I'm keeping my academic job, my day job, and also I'm experimenting with like this premium positioning on
well, I think universities, I don't know what the situation in Canada, but in the UK, you can run another business. You can have a business. You can't use the clients of the university, because I'm still teaching at the university. I love my job. I love students, but maybe at some point, if this business will require more attention, then I might choose to leave. But at the moment, it's kind of, I can do that as a side business if I do not, if I do not use the same student channels for recruitment and stuff like that. So you have to be careful in terms of, not stepping on what the university is doing, right? But you can still have that freedom, and actually it's very good, because you are creating new connections, right? I'm currently an advisor on the Enterprise Nation. It's a big platform with lots of entrepreneurs, and I'm running some free workshops for small businesses, and it's good because I actually teach what I experience, what I do, right? Because I'm teaching entrepreneurship and innovation, and I would hate to teach something just by reading a book, because it's not real, right? But if I live and breathe entrepreneurship, then I can teach it with passion and the right skill set. And I think that's why I always get really good student satisfaction, feedback on my courses, because I teach what I know, what I do every day, right?
Yeah, you're teaching from experience, and you have you have experience on the ground, on the field, with your own projects. We're really getting now to the last few minutes of the interview, and I wonder whether there's something we didn't talk about, but I think we covered a lot of ground. I think what I would ask of you now, before I kind of try to sum up what I'm keeping and what I'm taking home from this conversation, is to then to ask you to share, if people want to reach out to you, how they can best do that. Where's the best place to reach out to you? The book that you mentioned, I'll add it in the show notes. The link to Creative STEM Hub, I will put it in the show note too. Because you talked about these free masterclasses, and if you are watching, you're listening, and you are interested in learning about that, you can actually go to papaphd.com/creative-STEM, just like that in one word, and you'll see what that's about. But where is it that people can find you, can maybe find your socials and connect with you? Katerina, can you share that with us?
So I am on LinkedIn, and I'm also on a Substack. Writing is my passion, so I currently share my written word. But I'm thinking of doing more on YouTube as well as short videos as well. But at the moment, it's LinkedIn and Substack.
Perfect.
But if you are interested, just come to one of our master classes, and we'll show you how to package your expertise into a premium minimum viable product, and we'll show you how to get in front of the right clients so you can test your idea and then pivot if necessarily. I think that will be very valuable for you.
Okay. Are they ongoing? So these masterclasses, there's different sessions happening regularly?
Yeah, I mean, we are planning on running these master classes every couple of weeks or so. So there'll always be an opportunity for you when you're ready to come to one of our master classes.
Wonderful. So I'll add all those informations in the show notes. If people want to find it, just go to the show notes on your listening app or on the platform that you're listening to or watching the episode. Click on the links and you'll find all of that there, including, and I loved the title, The Road Less Stupid, the book that you mentioned. I think it's going to be interesting to share it with people. Katerina, I'm really grateful to have had your time this morning for me. I know it's not morning for you anymore. I think, no, it's not morning.
4 o'clock.
It's 4 o'clock. I think it's really important, like you said, and the important messages that I really want the audience to keep is don't let your perfectionism gain, have the best of you. When you're starting an entrepreneurial endeavor, it's going to be a roadblock for you. It's going to, it's going to spend your maybe cash, but also inner battery, your energy reserves, and then it will not allow you to actually be limber and pivot when needed. So don't do that. Find this minimum viable product. Yeah, minimum viable product. Just find what the minimum viable product is and go with that. That's the first one. The second one is, don't be too married to your initial idea, because the market, like you said, will change it. In the first interaction, you said something. It was really funny and interesting the way you said it. It's no business plan survives the first encounter with the client.
Yes.
I love it.
Because you can do all sorts of market forecasts.
Yeah, projections and.
When you launch, this is real. People are actually paying you money. This is the real test whether your idea is good or not.
Yesterday, I was listening to a podcast, and I don't remember the name of the entrepreneur, but he was saying when he was a younger entrepreneur, he had these 20 slides he was showing to a prospective client, high ticket offer, and then the client, he was going from slide 10 to 11. And then the client said, no, go back to 10, please. And then he went again to 10, and then he was going to 11. He said, no, please go back to 10. And the third time he tried to go to slide 11, he said, no, please, just let's stay on slide 10. And he said, this was the moment I understood all that I had after was actually not what the market was looking for. The market really wanted me to develop slide 10. And I think it kind of connects really nicely with this idea of the first encounter with the client. So super grateful that you shared that. And then I think that's, the kind of undercurrent of this conversation, which I really love, and I hope it passes on to the listeners and the people watching, is that if you are in a STEM domain, not only, but if you have a PhD, if you have had all those years of research, you have been building up your expertise to a level, way more advanced, way more developed, and you've put all these hours, blood, sweat, and tears into this, and it counts for something, and it is how can I say, it justifies you being secure of your capacities to develop projects, your capacity to bring your expertise and transfer it to another domain. We're talking about transferable skills, of course, but also application, of science into a problem of a community, of be it diseases, be it businesses, etc. And so I really love that people like you, Katerina, are out there trying to help, extend a hand and help people actually cross that bridge of, okay, I actually have not done this before, but there is a place for scientists in the entrepreneurial community, and that's a very important message, and I think that's the big take home that for me from this conversation. So thank you, Katerina. It was a great pleasure, and I wish you all the best for your endeavors, and I hope you help the most people possible cross this ford, cross this this canyon. It looks like a canyon, but in the end, I think with your help, they'll see that there's a comfortable path and a productive path there.
Absolutely. So thank you for inviting me to the podcast. And we're here when you're ready. So reach out and we'll help you.
Excellent. So
turn your expertise into a high value product or an offer.
Yeah, excellent. So Katerina, again, you'll find all the links to get in touch with Katerina in the show notes. If you're interested in the masterclass, again, it's papaphd.com/creativestem. And again, thanks for being with us. Thanks for being interested in entrepreneurship. I think, and I'm saying thanks because I think there needs to be a lot of communication between entrepreneurship and science and research, and it doesn't need to be very complicated. Sometimes it's just your idea, bootstrapping and pivoting, etc. It does not have to be super complex, and I think that's also a great message from what you shared. So thanks to all of you. If you are on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on your podcast app, please subscribe to the show so you don't miss any of these conversations. And do great science, have great ideas, do great entrepreneurship. We all need it. We need great science-based ideas out there today more than ever. And keep in touch with us. And if you have any questions or if you want to discuss any further.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this new episode of Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD. Have a question about this interview? Want to leave a comment about the podcast? Have someone you want to recommend to be interviewed? Go to speakpipe.com/papaphd and leave me a voice note. Just hit the big record button and leave me an up to 90-second message. I listen to all my messages and I consider all of them for feature on future episodes. speakpipe.com/papaphd. Hope to hear from you soon.